Today I'm going to go over functions, and a function in programming is a block of code that you can call or connect to something like an event. The selling feature of a function is code reuse. If you need a block of code in more than one place in your program, you can define a function and call the code as many times as you need rather than rewriting it over and over. If you hear the term method, it's basically a function in a class. And we haven't done classes yet, but soon. Let's go ahead and get started with our functions. Let's say we're writing a program that's going to address a real-world situation like hunger. And we got a variable called hungry, and we're going to set it to true. Let's go ahead and create a while loop because this could be an ongoing problem. So we'll say while hungry, and then let's let the user know what's going on. There is a hunger crisis and it's just in the house, right? We're beginner programmers. We can't take on world situations yet. And then let's give some more information. Let's print, are there nachos? Oh, and a question mark, right? We're going to query the user. And then let's go ahead and capture the decision from the user whether there's nachos or not. So I'll say input. We'll get the input going so the user can enter in information, and we'll make that response lowercase. So if the decision is yes, decision equals yes, then let's ask another question. Let's print, is there canned cheese? All right, and this is going to be the same setup. So you can see how I'm starting to duplicate code, right? We're setting ourselves up for a function. And if there is canned cheese, oh man, let's do that. That's yes. Then we're going to do something, right? We're going to eat nachos. We'll say eat nachos. And then the hunger situation has been resolved. So hungry is now false. All right, well, right here on this if statement, what happens if there was no nachos? Let's just do an else. And we'll just say something like panic. All right, so this is a nice little loop. It'll go through and then it'll query the user, right? Oh, there's a hunger crisis in the house. Are there nachos? Yes. Sweet. Is there canned cheese? Yes. Eat nachos. Crisis averted. All right, now let's make a function. I know we didn't test everything, but let's make a function so that we can reduce some of this redundant code. And keep in mind, this is an intro to functions video, so we're not going to get too crazy. I'm going to go to the top on line 1 right here, make some space. I'm going to define a function. I'm going to use the keyword def, and then I will name the function something like, how about hunger? And then I did an open and close parentheses because we're going to be able to pass information in there. We're not doing that in this step. And then use my colon to denote the beginning of the code block. What should we put in our function? I don't know. Let's try something like this out. Let's copy this. I'm going to do a Control C, copy it however you want on your computer, and then I'll do a Control V to paste it. Now, see that yellow line? PyCharm wants you to have 2 lines in between your function and your next line of code. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is I am going to make this line hunger. So it's going to call my hunger function and it's going to print it out. I know it's actually even more lines of code, but we're going to work on that. So when I go ahead and hit the run, boom, there is a hunger crisis in the house. So it started the loop and then called hunger and it called that line of code. Let me just turn this off. I know it's going to create some errors, but that's all right. I didn't feel like going through it all. Let's go ahead and clear that. We'll hit the little trash can down here. It says clear all. Boom. In order to make functions a little more flexible, you could pass information into the function And that's going to make it so that we could use it in more places. Let's get rid of this hard-coded string right here. I'm going to do a cut, and that copies and cuts it. And I'm going to paste that inside these parentheses that calls hunger. And let's do a paste. Look at that. We got a yellow line that says unexpected argument. What's an argument? It's information you pass into the function. Up here, you usually call it a parameter, but it's the same thing, right? It's a variable that's going to hold that string, and then we can print MSG out. It's a variable that's local to our function, and right here, oh, look at this. We could do something like this then. We could say hunger, hunger, and then pass in this string, and it's going to work. We're still not saving us any code, but we're going to get there. If you're curious why I put the letters MSG, it's just short for message. It's a variable. You can call it whatever you want. It just should make sense. I thought MSG would be good for a message. All right, now another thing in Python, for your parameters, you can have optional parameters. Our message right here is mandatory. You have to put it in, but we can do an optional parameter. I'm going to make a variable called query, and it's going to mean whether I'm actually querying the user or just sending a message. So I'm going to make the default of this as false, right? So it's optional. If you don't put anything in here as a second argument, like down here, I'm just doing a message, we're going to have a query of false. And then let's add some code. Let's say something like, if query is true, we're going to ask the user something. We're going to ask the user something like this. We want to get an input. I'm going to do a control C. I'm going to come up here, can do a control V. And this is yellow because it says Shadow's name decision from outer scope. We haven't really talked about scope, but I'm getting a warning saying, hey, you use decision inside the function and you use decision outside the function. You could get confused. Probably should change this name because we want to keep our function self-contained, not relying on code outside of the function except for what gets passed in. All right, let's go ahead and call this result. Cool, but how do I get result here? Even now it's named something different, right? Out here, we want it to be right there. I'm going to return a value. I'm going to say return, result, and then let's make another line. I'm going to take a look at my hunger function. Oh, this one's good. I'm not going to add anything. It's not a query. It's just a message. Oh, but this one, I can combine these two lines of code by saying, hey, this is a query. I'm going to say true right here. And then it gave, the IntelliSense gave, hey, this is the message and this is the query. That's just for you. For PyCharm, your IDE might not have done that. This line we don't need anymore, right? We do need the decision, right? So we can do this. Decision equals, now when hunger gets called, you have two arguments. We come up here, query is now true. We print our message that got sent in here. Query is true. We're going to ask the user for some information based on what's in the print statement. This return is going to return the result to decision. That's cool. All right. And this is fine right here. There is no query parameter specified. We could do this. We could say false. And it's going to be the same thing, right? Because it's default as false. Or we could just leave it blank. All right. Now we get down here. We could say some code. Instead of this print statement, we can call hunger. And instead of asking for a decision here, control X, control V, we can grab the information as long as we enter a true saying It's a query. All right, now we can get rid of that. We don't need that. And I think this is good for our demonstration. Let's try it. Let's hit play. Are there nachos? Oh, there is a hunger crisis in the house. Are there nachos? Yes. Ooh, is there canned cheese? Yes. Eat nachos. Cool. All right, now you have the basics of a function. Hopefully that was easy enough to understand. I will see you in the next video.